when we became 3. Emma looked at the pregnancy test with wide eyes, almost unable to believe what she was seeing. The 2 pink lines on the stick confirmed something she hadn't quite wrapped her head around. She wasn't sure if it was excitement or fear coursing through her veins. She'd always imagined what it might feel like to be a mother, but now that the moment had arrived, the reality felt overwhelming. Her hands shook as she picked up her phone, dialing James's number. The call connected quickly. "Hey, love. What's up?" James's voice came through, full of warmth and ease. "I think I'm pregnant," Emma whispered, the words coming out shaky. There was a long pause on the other end, and for a moment, Emma thought he hadn't heard her. Then, the relief in his voice when he spoke next was unmistakable. "Are you serious?" "I think so." Emma's voice wavered. "I just took the test. I'm not sure what to think." "I'll be home in 10 minutes, he said, sounding both excited and uncertain. "Don't move. I'm coming to see you." And true to his word, 10 minutes later, James was standing in the doorframe of their apartment, out of breath and wide-eyed with excitement. He crossed the room in 2 steps and pulled Emma into a warm, tight embrace, one hand automatically finding her stomach, though there was no visible sign of pregnancy yet. "We're going to be parents," he whispered into her hair, his voice full of wonder. Emma smiled, feeling the weight of the moment settle in her chest. She could still barely believe it herself. But the way James was holding her, his gentle hands on her growing belly, the way he gazed at her like she was the most precious thing in the world, made her believe, even if just for a moment, that everything would be okay. The first trimester hit Emma like a freight train. Morning sickness, nausea, fatigue. It was as though her body had gone on strike, leaving her exhausted and in a fog of constant discomfort. She had hoped for a smooth pregnancy, but instead, she found herself barely able to get out of bed most days. James was a rock during those early months. He didn't hesitate when it came to taking care of her, even when it meant adjusting his own routine. He would wake up early to make her favorite ginger tea, then gingerly set it beside her while she was still curled up in bed. He scoured the internet for natural remedies for nausea, tried out different snacks to see what would stay down, and made sure she was always hydrated. He was thoughtful in a way that made Emma feel both seen and cared for. There was a night, just before the 12-week mark, when Emma was curled up on the couch, trying to keep down a small plate of crackers. She had been battling with constant waves of nausea for days, and everything felt like a blur of discomfort. James came in from the kitchen, holding 2 steaming mugs of tea. "You okay, babe?" he asked, sitting down beside her and handing her the tea. "You've been so quiet today." "I don't think I've ever felt this miserable," Emma admitted with a small, exhausted laugh. "Everything smells awful, and I'm constantly tired. I can't keep anything down." James reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Hey, you're doing great. This will pass. And you're growing our baby. That's amazing." He stayed with her that night, quietly reading a book while she rested, occasionally rubbing her back when the nausea returned. It was small, but it was everything. As the second trimester rolled around, things started to get a little better. Emma had more energy, and the sickness seemed to fade into the background. That didn't mean things were easy, but it felt like they had entered a new phase, a phase of excitement and anticipation. James seemed even more enamored with her as her belly began to round out. He started a tradition of taking weekly photos of her, documenting her growing bump. He called the album Growing With You, and every week he would write a little note beside each photo. Some weeks were more emotional than others, like the week when Emma felt the baby's first kick, a gentle flutter that made both of them freeze in place. "We're going to be parents," James said in awe, one hand on her belly. Emma laughed, softly. "You keep saying that, but I don't think it's hit me yet." It's crazy, right? James said, his voice thick with emotion. I mean, I'm so used to us, just the two of us, but soon we'll have a little one. We'll be a family of 3. But with that joy came moments of fear, too. As Emma's due date drew closer, she found herself plagued with doubts. The unknowns of motherhood loomed large. What if something went wrong? What if she wasn't ready? What if the baby didn't arrive safely? One evening, after a particularly rough day of swollen feet and restless nights, Emma found herself sitting on the bathroom floor, her arms wrapped around her knees, trying to calm the panic rising in her chest. Her mind raced with the endless what-ifs. James found her there, sitting in the dark, the only light coming from the flickering nightlight near the door. He knelt beside her, his heart aching for her, as he reached out to touch her shoulder. "Emma," he whispered. "Hey, what's going on?" "I'm scared," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "What if I'm not ready? What if I fail?" James sat down next to her, pulling her into his arms. "You're already doing everything you can," he said softly. "You're carrying our baby. You've been amazing throughout this whole thing. And I'm right here. We're in this together no matter what." Emma clung to him, her tears soaking into his shirt. For a moment, it felt like everything was uncertain again. But James's unwavering support gave her the strength she needed to take a deep breath. "I'm here. Always," he repeated. The days leading up to the birth were a blur of excitement, nervous energy, and preparation. James made sure everything was ready. He painted the nursery, set up the crib, and even packed the hospital bag well in advance, just in case. Every time Emma turned around, he was there, quietly making sure everything was just right. Then came the night Emma went into labor. It happened suddenly, without warning. The contractions came fast and furious, and within hours, Emma found herself in the car. Her hand gripped tightly in James as he drove through the night, navigating the dark streets toward the hospital. "I'm here. You're doing great," James kept whispering as he squeezed her hand. The hospital room was a blur of bright lights, medical staff, and the constant beeping of monitors. Emma's body trembled as the contractions intensified. And yet, through it all, James never left her side. He was there with every breath, every push, his voice a steady anchor in the storm of emotion and pain. And then, after hours of labor, their daughter was born, a tiny, squirming bundle of joy. Emma's heart swelled as she held her daughter. For the first time, the weight of this new life in her arms, both surreal and magical. James, tears in his eyes, bent down and kissed her forehead. "You did it. We did it," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. He gently placed his finger in their daughter's tiny hand. "Hi, little one," he said. "I'm Daddy." That night, as they all settled into the quiet of their hospital room, James sat beside Emma, holding their baby in his arms. The joy, the love, and the quiet peace of those moments filled the room, and Emma realized that, for all the uncertainty, they had made it. They were now a family. 3 people bound, together by love, ready for the journey ahead. The months that followed were filled with sleepless nights, new routines, and endless learning. But through it all, James remained Emma's rock, steadfast and gentle, always there when she needed him, always loving, always patient. And as they stood together, gazing down at their daughter one quiet evening, Emma knew one thing for sure. They were ready, they had each other, and that was enough. This story captures a journey of love, growth, and the deep bond between Emma and James as they navigate the challenges of pregnancy and the excitement of becoming parents. If you'd like to explore any particular scene further or need more details, feel free to ask.